Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by Lines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And it's Monday, and we've got 8 games to choose from. Pretty fun slate tonight in the NBA. In this one, we're taking a look at the Bucks. They are in Portland, taking on those Trailblazers. A few pretty key guys missing for the Blazers while the Bucks continue to get healthier and healthier. We're going to take a look at this one. Another fun game for you tonight. And our player props went 4-2. Nice week on Friday, and a very, very nice week last week for us on that one. So make sure to follow along, like, and subscribe to that page. Also want you to head to the Lines.com. You can check out all of our great written content up there and use that odds finder tool that we have up there for you guys. Nate and I are using that every morning to make sure we're getting the best juice back on all the available odds we're getting out there from US sportsbooks. Nate, let's go ahead and jump into this 8-game slate and then talk Bucks and Blazers.
Yeah, the Celtics trying to get right are -11 in Detroit. That is a spot where we've seen people score a ton of points. The Cavs are on a back-to-back. They're -3 at Washington. Wizards been hot lately. Kuzma's out, though. Beal is questionable. Interesting one in Brooklyn after the Kyrie Irving saga has moved on here. The Nets are +7.5 at home against the Clips, who, never really take people seriously when they don't have big names in the lineup. Spurs +11 at Bulls. Tons of guys out or questionable for that one, both sides. Kings, same thing, -5.5 at Houston. The Mavs now without Dinwiddie, Darian Finney-Smith, and Luka as they go through that trade, and Luka's hurt, are +10 in Utah. And so we're going to break down the last 2 games on this slate because they're a little more clear here. Bucks -4 at Portland. Also, we got Warriors -4 at home against the Thunder. And this total for the Bucks-Blazers game is 242. I understand why it's so high. I'm a little intrigued by the under, but I think what we like more is the Bucks. Because, it's the same idea that I'm intrigued by the idea of negative regression for Portland, which even with Damian Lillard playing probably the best ball of his career in 15 games here, they're 7-8 in that span. Their defense has just been abysmal. And in the last 8 in particular, I think they have unsustainably good three-point shooting, 42%, hitting nearly 16 threes per game. Bucks have also kind of had unsustainable. Maybe it's not unsustainable because of their style of play, because Giannis sucks in the defense so much. They're also hitting over 15 threes in these last 7 straight since Giannis got back in there. And the pace has slowed down, but they are still scoring 126 a game and won 7 of their last 8 against Portland here. The exception was without Giannis, which, as you might figure, no Dame either. And they won earlier this season with no Dame in the lineup. But, I think the bigger point is that this is a matchup that Giannis just knifes through. We talked a lot about versus Indiana, versus Chicago, and just owning that particular team, shooting 72% from the floor, which is what he shoots against Portland in his last 3, averaging 38 points per game, and is a +64 in those matchups. And then, so I mentioned Dame also averaging 37, incredible 140 offensive rating in these 15. All that, Josh, makes him a +1 in 15 games because there's just not much around him to, that is them treading water when Damian Lillard is absolutely on fire. And now he matches up with Drew Holiday, maybe the toughest individual matchup for a guy like Dame. His last 6 head-to-head with Drew, 23 points per game, 41 from the floor, 28% from deep, and is a -61. Blazers also without Jusuf Nurkic, who has taken a lot of criticism for his individual defense, but the numbers certainly indicate that they're not as good on either end without him. The defense is actually just about exactly the same, but they're playing at a much slower pace without him, unable to kind of get into their stuff as much. Recently, they've been having a ridiculously low assist rate on shooting on threes, and even with Nurk in and out of the lineup, allowing the 4th most second chance points, 5th most paint points in their last 8 here. So I think the Bucks are gonna have a lot of success here on offense, continuing to get good shots or to have Giannis knife through. And that the Blazers, if Dame struggles even a little bit or regresses even a little bit, they're going to have a hard time keeping pace with the team that's now on a tear.
Yep. 100%. And actually, that's why it's not a hot take, but I did want to see what's going on here with some of the role players on the Blazers and how they fare when they win versus when they lose. How crucial is a guy like Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant versus Dame? I mean, Dame is crucial. Dame is it, right? It starts and ends with him. You don't have him. All of this is irrelevant because this isn't even close to a playoff team. I mean, it's close to a playoff team, but maybe not in the West this year, where it's kind of deep. Teams are getting better, including the Mavericks, as you talk about with getting Kyrie. We'll see if they get better. But I think for this one, I'm looking at Anthony Simons. I'm looking at Jeremy Grant. What are their stats when they win, when they lose? Anthony Simons is the most glaring one. When they win, he's scoring about 6 more points a game versus when they lose in the games that he's playing. And it's shooting percentages as well. Is he making his threes? Is he getting to the rim? Because he has gotten a lot better off the dribble this season. I will say as well, his catch and shoot numbers last year were really, really good. This year, he's got a few better numbers off the dribble, which obviously is a little bit more your turn, my turn when it comes to he and Dame. But I think the key here is Milwaukee in form. Maybe they're not covering the spread the same way, but they've been able to sort of get themselves right and really do it against teams. The Heat and the Clippers, their last 2 games, some tests that they overcame on awful start to that Clippers game, and then Giannis decided that he was going to score more than 50 points basically in the second half, and they pulled back on that one. The Heat were missing a few guys, as they are every single game it seems like, but before that they were able to get right in games like the Hornets, Pellies, Pacers, and the Nuggets and Pistons. Nuggets didn't have anybody playing in that game. Halliburton was still out for the Pacers in that game. My main point here is they were just able to sort of get right, and even though it looks ugly, and they've only been 4-3 against the spread in that last 7 that they've been winning with Middleton back, getting a few more minutes, they've at least been able to win those games while they're figuring things out with this team and this roster as Middleton gets back. And they were starting to do a little bit more Milwaukee Bucks things before this 7-game win streak anyway, because of the insertion of Joe Ingles and the increased play of Pat Connaughton, who's averaging about 32 minutes a game over the course of the last 12 games because of how much they needed him with guys in and out of the lineup. And those 2 guys sort of taking on the Chris Middleton role, a little bit more playmaking from them and finding other guys while also just being very available to hit an open 3 off of Giannis's drives, right? And playing the pick and roll with him as well between Connaughton and Ingles. So my main point is, like, that guy who does what Middleton does, it has been in the form of Joe Ingles and Pat Connaughton in the last 7 games. And now Middleton in his last 7, still only averaging about 18 minutes a game. But in his last 3, got up above 20. So I think you can continue to expect him to round back into form. And then you just expect this team to do what it does every single season when it comes to, Giannis crashing the paint, them defending the paint, them controlling the pace exactly as they wanted at home and getting up and down. And then just being a much, 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 much better defensive team as well at this point, especially with Middleton back, who is underrated in terms of how versatile his ability to guard guys, big, solid guys like all the players on the Celtics, for instance, who are 6'8" and can control the ball. So I think with all that said, this is a bad spot for the Blazers with both Nurk and Winslow out. You talk about GB2 being probable, and he's going to be huge for them because of the defense that he's going to need to be playing. But I don't think they have enough to stop this Bucks team. Combined with, even if Dame does get 40, I think that the Bucks can do enough to stop the rest of the guys on this Blazers team that they would need to get enough points.
Yeah, and without Dame, Simons really struggled in this first meeting. The Blazers shot 8 for 29 as a team, 19 assists to 15 turnovers, and their team best plus minus was Nurkic at -5. So, you say what you will about him in certain matchups, he's definitely essential when you have a guy like Giannis and you need to build that wall down low. And the paint points differential here, also the rebounding differential. Like, Milwaukee's been the number 1 rebounding team by a mile in the last 7 here. And without Nurk, they're going to be even worse. They're getting out rebounded 5 per game without him. And especially lately giving up those second chance points I talked about. There's a lot of ways it can go wrong for them defensively. And for Milwaukee, it's really just, containing Dame and doing a pretty good job on that supporting cast, which is just not that dangerous. We didn't even mention Jeremy Grant going head-to-head with Giannis. That's not a great matchup for him either. And that this is the 3rd game in 4 nights for Portland. So a little bit of tired legs.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it too. Like I was saying that the Bucks rounding into form down low and in the fast break categories, and the Blazers are just hemorrhaging points in the paint. They're dead last in terms of stopping second chance points. They're in the bottom 3 in rebounding. This is all in the last 10 games. Kind of to your point, without Nurk, how do you expect them to get any better at defending the paint or getting those defensive rebounds, where their defensive rebound percentage has just been absolutely terrible? So I think this is another great opportunity for the long arms of everybody that's on the Bucks to probably have their way around the basket tonight, and that's going to be pretty much the indicating factor for why they should be able to cover 4 points. And that is all the time we have for you guys in this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us. Until we see you next, happy betting.